Between threatening to hit dozens of countries with steep tariffs starting Thursday and a not so ideal July jobs report, the Trump administration may be dealing with big changes in the economy, and many Americans might be reasonably getting nervous again about the economy. I want to bring in economist Natasha Sarin, who joins us now. She was a counselor to Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen under President Biden. So new tariffs set to go in place. Last year, we were looking at imports to the U.S. facing an effective tariff rate of a little over 1%. With this newest set going in place, that would surge to more than 18%. What is your reaction to what appears to be a reshaping of the U.S. economy in real time?
Well, what I can tell you based on sort of the read of the data that my colleagues at the Yale Budget Lab and I have been sort of focused on over the course of the last many months is we are about to be at effective tariff rates that this country hasn't seen in about a century. And those effective tariff rates translate into higher prices for consumers on literally everything they buy, on the order of magnitude of about $2,400 for your average family. What's also happening simultaneously, and really what the jobs report that we got last week is kind of telling us, is that at the same time, imposing tariffs on these levels on the economy is actually shrinking the economy because it's leading people to spend more and it's leading businesses to invest less. And what that does is it means it costs the economy jobs. We estimate on the order of magnitude of about 500,000 jobs annually. And also what it's going to do is it's going to decrease investment in this country going forward. So there's a whole host of negative consequences that are going to come from tariff levels this high. And that's before we even get to the fact that there's tremendous uncertainty about where these tariffs are ultimately going to land.
Some watching the market might think that stock markets got some relief from the brutal sell-off / chaos in April after the initial set of tariffs was announced by counting on the idea that Trump would back down from some of these tariffs. But take a listen to White House economic advisor Kevin Hassett this morning.
Could a market reaction prompt President Trump to change these tariff rates again?
The markets have seen what we're doing and celebrated them. And so I don't see how that would happen.
Okay, but not ruling it out.
No, I would rule it out because these are the final deals.
What do you think the appetite or threshold is for sticking to these rates, even if the markets react wildly like we saw back in April?
You know, it's really hard, Omar, to get into the mind of the president or the administration and anticipate how they're likely to react to the market and signals that they're going to get from the market. What I can tell you is that even at current state, there is a ton of uncertainty about how these tariff deals are ultimately going to land for a host of reasons, right? So if you look at where we are with respect to Mexico and where we are with respect to China, who are two of our biggest trading partners, we've kicked the can down the road with respect to resolution of even where these deals are ultimately going to land. And then if you look at the rest of the countries that we're talking about, the idea was that there was going to be a hard deadline of August 1st and these tariffs would go into effect. And that deadline was pushed just last week, another week. So I think ultimately there's a ton of uncertainty in the landscape. And that uncertainty is starting to reflect in how businesses are making choices because they're in kind of wait and see mode. They're not really sure whether it makes sense to think about investing in this country, investing abroad, or kind of trying to think about the various ways in which their intermediary structure is ultimately going to be reshaped by these tariffs, because independently of the tariffs on particular countries, you're also talking about tariffs on important aspects of the economy like aluminum, steel, which are hugely critical intermediaries.
Yeah, we are just going to have to see how this plays out. I think you put it best. A lot of people in wait and see mode right now to see what version of these tariff rates actually go in place and if they stick through whatever happens with the markets. Natasha Sarin, really appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me.
Of course.